The morphine was wearing off when my phone buzzed. I was lying in that sterile hospital bed, leg elevated in a cast, still feeling like a truck had run me over. Which, considering the construction beam that had nearly crushed me, wasn't far from the truth. The pain medication made everything hazy, but I figured I should check my messages. Maybe Sarah had sent something sweet, or Mike was checking in again. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands. The message was from Sarah, but it wasn't meant for me. God, I can't wait for tonight. Tom's knocked out on pain meds and won't wake up for hours. Come over around 8. I bought that lingerie you like. My heart stopped. I read it again. And again. The words didn't change. My wife of 8 years, the woman who'd been holding my hand and crying over my hospital bed just hours ago, had sent this to someone. But who? Then I saw it. The thread showed her previous messages. To Mike. My best friend since college. My best man. The guy who'd been visiting me every day, bringing me magazines and telling me how worried he was. Last night was incredible. I've never felt anything like that. Tom has no idea how good you make me feel. I love how you touch me. So different from him. We need to be more careful, but I don't want to stop. I think I'm falling for you. The phone slipped from my hands and clattered onto the hospital tray. I couldn't breathe. The heart monitor started beeping faster, and a nurse rushed in. Mr. Henderson, are you all right? Your heart rate just spiked. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the ceiling, feeling like I was drowning. 8 years of marriage. 15 years of friendship. All of it was a lie. The nurse adjusted something on my IV, probably more pain medication, but no drug could touch what I was feeling now. Physical pain had nothing on this. This was my soul being ripped apart. Sarah had been here too, hours ago, kissing my forehead, telling me how scared she'd been when she got the call about my accident, how she couldn't live without me, all while planning to sleep with my best friend the moment she left. But here's what they didn't know yet. I wasn't just some naive husband anymore. That text message had awakened something in me. Something cold and calculating. They thought I was helpless, trapped in this hospital bed. They thought they were safe. They had no idea what was coming. 3 months earlier, I thought I had it all figured out. Sarah and I had just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. We'd gone to that little Italian place where we had our first date, and she'd worn the same blue dress that had made me fall in love with her in college. She looked just as beautiful as the day I met her. To 8 more years, she'd said, raising her wine glass. To forever, I'd replied. God, I was such an idiot. But back then, everything seemed perfect. I'd just gotten promoted to senior project manager at Richardson Construction. It was the break I'd been working toward for 5 years. Better pay, better benefits, and finally the financial security to start thinking about kids. Sarah taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. She'd come home every day with stories about her students, her face lighting up when she talked about their progress. We'd talked about having our own children soon. She said she wanted a little boy who looked just like me. Another lie, I guess. Mike had been part of our lives since day one. Hell, he introduced me to Sarah at a college party. You two are perfect for each other, he'd said, pushing us together on the dance floor. He was right, or so I thought. Mike was the kind of friend everyone wishes they had. He remembered birthdays, helped us move into our first house, and was always there with a beer and advice when work got stressful. When I proposed to Sarah, Mike was the first person I called. About time, man, he'd laughed. I was wondering when you'd finally grow a pair. He planned my bachelor party, gave a speech at our wedding that made everyone cry, and had been the unofficial third wheel of our marriage ever since. Sarah loved him like a brother. Or so I thought. The promotion meant longer hours, more responsibility. I was managing 3 major construction sites across the city, leaving the house at 6 a.m. and getting home after 8 p.m. most nights. Sarah never complained. She'd have dinner waiting, ask about my day, massage my shoulders when the stress got too much. You're working so hard for us, she'd say. I'm proud of you. Mike started coming around more during this time. He'd help Sarah with yard work on weekends when I was too exhausted. He'd stay for dinner when I was working late. Just keeping Sarah company, he'd say. She gets lonely. I was grateful. I thought it showed what a good friend he was, looking out for my wife when I couldn't be there. I trusted them both completely. It never occurred to me that trust could be such a dangerous thing. Looking back now, I realize how perfectly they played their roles. The concerned wife, the loyal friend. They must have laughed about how easy I was to fool. But they weren't laughing anymore. The changes started small. So small that I convinced myself I was imagining things. Sarah joined a gym in February. She'd never shown interest in working out before, but suddenly she was going 3 times a week. "I want to get in shape," she'd said. "Feel better about myself." I supported her, of course. Bought her new workout clothes, encouraged her when she complained about being sore. I thought it was great that she was taking care of herself. What I didn't notice was that she was going to the same gym as Mike. Then there was the phone thing. Sarah had always been casual about her phone, leaving it on counters, asking me to check messages while she drove. But suddenly it was glued to her hand. She'd take it to the bathroom, keep it face down during dinner, and I'd catch her smiling at texts she'd quickly hide. "Work stuff," she'd say when I asked. "Parent conferences coming up." But parent conferences don't make you smile like that. They don't make you blush and bite your lip. Mike started showing up more often. He'd drop by on Saturday mornings when I was trying to sleep in, claiming he was in the neighborhood. He'd stay for coffee, help Sarah with gardening, fix little things around the house. "You're so lucky to have a handy friend," Sarah would say. "Mike's so good with his hands." The way she said it should have been a red flag. The little smile, the way her eyes lingered on him. But I was exhausted from work, stressed about deadlines, and frankly, I was grateful for the help. I started noticing conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Sarah and Mike would be talking quietly on the back porch, but they'd switch to talking about the weather the moment I stepped outside. "Just complaining about my dating life," Mike would say with a laugh. "Sarah's trying to set me up with her teacher friends." Sarah would nod and smile, but something felt off. The way they looked at each other, the way Mike's hand would linger on her shoulder when he hugged her goodbye. But I pushed those thoughts away. These were the 2 people I trusted most in the world. Sarah loved me. Mike was my best friend. I was just being paranoid because of work stress. The biggest sign was the sex. Sarah and I had always had a good physical relationship, but suddenly she seemed different. Distant during intimacy, like her mind was somewhere else. She'd close her eyes, and I'd wonder who she was thinking about. But when I tried to talk to her about it, she'd brush it off. "I'm just tired, honey. Work's been stressful." There were a dozen other little things. Sarah doing her hair differently, new perfume, suddenly caring about matching underwear, working late more often, going out with friends on Friday nights. I should have seen it. Any reasonable person would have seen it. But I didn't want to see it. I wanted to believe in the life we'd built together. I wanted to trust the 2 people who meant everything to me. That trust nearly destroyed me. But in the end, it would be their downfall. March 15th, the day that changed everything. I was inspecting a beam installation on the Richardson Tower project when the cable snapped. 20 feet of steel came crashing down, and I had maybe 2 seconds to react. I pushed my foreman out of the way and took the hit myself. The beam caught my left leg and threw me against a concrete pillar. I heard bones snap before I felt the pain. Then everything went black. I woke up in the ICU 3 days later. Sarah was there, her eyes red from crying, holding my hand like her life depended on it. "Oh God, Tom, I thought I'd lost you," she whispered, kissing my forehead. "The doctors said it was touch and go for a while." I had a shattered femur, 3 broken ribs, and internal bleeding that had required emergency surgery. The doctors said I was lucky to be alive. Sarah stayed by my side for hours, only leaving when the nurses forced her to eat or rest. Mike showed up on day 2, carrying flowers and wearing the most concerned expression I'd ever seen on his face. "Jesus, man, you scared the hell out of me," he said, gripping my shoulder. "When Sarah called, I dropped everything and raced over here." He looked genuinely devastated. His voice cracked when he talked about almost losing his best friend. Sarah teared up watching him, and I remember that, thanking how lucky I was to have people who loved me this much. They were perfect those 2 weeks. Sarah would arrive every morning with coffee and breakfast, stay until visiting hours ended. She'd read to me, help me with physical therapy exercises, and sleep in the uncomfortable hospital chair when I had bad nights. Mike came by every evening after work. He'd bring magazines, tell me office gossip, and keep me company when Sarah went home to shower and change. Sometimes they'd overlap, and the three of us would watch TV together like old times. "You're so lucky to have us," Mike joked one evening. "Two personal caregivers for the price of none." Sarah laughed and squeezed his arm. "We're just taking care of our favorite person." The way she looked at him when she said it should have been a clue, but I was on pain medication, grateful for their care and touched by their devotion. They played their parts perfectly. Sarah would hold my hand and tell me how much she missed me at home. Mike would talk about how empty his life felt without his best friend to hang out with. They'd coordinate their visits, bring me things I needed, and tag team keeping my spirits up. What I didn't know was that they were also coordinating their affair. While I was lying there broken and helpless, they were planning when to meet. While Sarah was holding my hand and crying over how scared she'd been, she was texting Mike about what lingerie to wear. While Mike was telling me how worried he'd been about losing me, he was falling in love with my wife. The cruelest part? They were probably sleeping together in my own bed, in the house I was paying for, on the sheets Sarah and I had picked out together. But I wouldn't learn that until later. For now, I was just a grateful husband and friend, thinking I was the luckiest man alive to have such devoted people in my life. I had no idea I was actually the biggest fool who ever lived. That text message changed everything. After the nurse left and my heart rate returned to normal, I stared at my phone for what felt like hours. The words kept swimming in front of my eyes, but they never changed. My wife was cheating on me with my best friend, while I was lying here broken and helpless. My first instinct was to call Sarah immediately, scream at her, demand answers. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the pain medication clearing my head, or maybe it was pure survival instinct, but I realized I needed to be smart about this. If I confronted them now, they'd just deny everything, delete the evidence, make me look crazy. No, I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. I started with Sarah's phone records. We had a shared account, so I could access everything online. My hands were shaking as I logged in, but what I found made my blood run cold. Hundreds of texts to Mike over the past 4 months. Calls that lasted hours, usually when I was at work. Video calls late at night when I was asleep. I couldn't see the actual messages. Those were on her phone, but the frequency told the story. They were talking constantly, way more than a wife should be talking to her husband's best friend. Next, I checked our credit card statements. Sarah had been using our joint card for things that made no sense. Victoria's Secret purchases, expensive restaurants on days when she told me she was eating lunch alone, a hotel charge from last month when she said she was visiting her sister. I called her sister. "Oh, Tom, how are you feeling?" "Sarah told me about the accident," Jenny said. "I'm recovering, thanks." "Hey, Sarah mentioned she visited you last month, the weekend of the 18th? There was a pause. "Visited me? No, honey, I haven't seen Sarah since Christmas. Is everything okay?" I hung up without answering. My wife had lied to me, used our money to pay for a hotel room, and was probably screwing my best friend. Deed in it. But I needed more. I needed the smoking gun. I started thinking about their behavior over the past few months. All those times Mike had come over when I was working late, the way they'd stop talking when I entered rooms, Sarah's new workout routine at Mike's gym. That's when I remembered the security cameras. I'd installed a Ring doorbell and 2 outdoor cameras 6 months ago after a rash of break-ins in our neighborhood. The cameras were motion-activated and stored footage in the cloud. I could access everything from my phone. With trembling fingers, I opened the Ring app and started scrolling through footage from the past month. Most of it was boring. Delivery drivers, neighbors walking dogs, me leaving for work. But then I found it. March 8th, 2:30 p.m. I was at work. Sarah's car was in the driveway, and Mike's truck pulled up behind it. He got out carrying flowers and a bottle of wine. Sarah met him at the door, wearing a dress I'd never seen before. They kissed on my front porch. Not a friendly peck. A deep, passionate kiss that lasted 15 seconds. I watched my wife and my best friend walk into my house together, and I knew exactly what they were doing in there. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the timestamp. This was 3 days before my accident. While I was working overtime to provide for our future, they were already betraying me. I scrolled through more footage, found 3 more instances over the past month. Always when I was at work, always the same routine. Flowers, wine, kisses, disappearing into my house for hours. By the time I finished reviewing the footage, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was calculating. They thought they were so clever, so careful, but they'd been sloppy. They'd left a trail of evidence that would destroy them both, and I was going to use every bit of it. The next morning, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting them, I was going to build a case, a bulletproof, devastating case that would expose them completely and protect me legally. First, I needed professional help. I found a private investigator online, Marcus Webb, 20 years experience, specializing in infidelity cases. I called him from my hospital bed, and he agreed to meet me that afternoon. Marcus was exactly what you'd expect from a PI. Weathered face, sharp eyes, and the kind of calm demeanor that said he'd seen it all before. I need everything, I told him, showing him the text messages and video footage. Photos, documentation, witnesses, I want them buried. Marcus nodded, reviewing the evidence on my phone. This is good stuff, but we need more. I'll put surveillance on both of them. Full documentation. Should take about 2 weeks. I'll pay whatever it costs. Next, I contacted a divorce attorney. Rebecca Martinez had a reputation for being ruthless in custody and asset protection cases. She also agreed to meet me at the hospital. Adultery cases can be tricky, she explained, but with solid evidence, we can ensure you keep the house, most of the assets, and if you have children, favorable custody arrangements. No kids, thank God, I said. That simplifies things. With what you've shown me, plus additional evidence, we can make this very expensive for your wife. But the legal stuff was just the beginning. I wanted more than a favorable divorce settlement. I wanted justice. That's when I started digging into Mike's life. See, Mike and I had done some business together over the years. He was a freelance IT consultant, and I'd referred him to several clients through my construction contacts. He'd helped Richardson Construction set up their new computer systems last year. I started looking into those contracts, those referrals, those business relationships, and what I found made me smile for the first time since reading that text message. Mike had been skimming, small amounts at first, but it had escalated over the past year. He was billing clients for work he never did, inflating hours, charging for equipment that was never delivered. He'd stolen over $30,000 from my professional contacts. I had the proof, invoices that didn't match actual work performed, bank deposits that exceeded legitimate contracts, and most damning, emails where he'd asked me to vouch for work I'd never actually verified. Mike wasn't just betraying me personally. He was betraying me professionally, using my reputation to steal from my clients. I spent the next week building 2 separate cases. The personal case against Sarah, documenting every lie, every hotel charge, every moment she'd been with Mike when she was supposed to be loyal to me, and the criminal case against Mike, documenting every fraudulent transaction, every inflated invoice, every dollar he'd stolen while pretending to be my friend. By the end of week 2, I had enough evidence to destroy them both. Marcus had photos of them entering hotels together, kissing in restaurant parking lots, and holding hands at the gym. Rebecca had prepared divorce papers that would leave Sarah with almost nothing. And I had a folder full of financial crimes that would put Mike behind bars. But I wasn't ready to play my hand yet. I had one more move to make, one final, perfect piece of revenge that would expose them in front of everyone who mattered. They thought they were so smart, carrying on their affair while I was helpless in the hospital. They thought they'd get away with it. They had no idea what was coming. I was discharged from the hospital on a Friday. Sarah picked me up, fussing over me like the perfect devotee. Midwife. She'd prepared the house for my recovery, moved a bed downstairs, stocked up on my favorite foods, even bought new pillows for my comfort. I just want to take care of you, she said, helping me settle onto the couch. You've been through so much. The performance was flawless. If I hadn't known better, I would have believed she actually cared. Mike came by that evening with takeout from my favorite restaurant. Welcome home, buddy, he said, giving me a careful hug. The place wasn't the same without you. As I watched them interact, the subtle glances, the way they were careful not to touch, the nervous energy between them, I almost felt sorry for them. They had no idea what was about to hit. I spent the weekend playing the part of the grateful, recovering husband. I thanked Sarah for her devotion, told Mike how much his friendship meant to me, and acted like the naive fool they thought I was. But on Monday, I set my plan in motion. I called both sets of parents and several close friends. I want to have a celebration dinner, I told them. A thank you to everyone who supported me through this ordeal, this Saturday, 7 p.m. at the house. Sarah was thrilled. That's such a sweet idea, honey. I'll help you plan it. Mike seemed nervous. Are you sure you're up for hosting? That's a lot of people. I'm sure, I said, looking him straight in the eye. It's time everyone knew how grateful I am. I invited 12 people total. Sarah's parents, my parents, Mike's fiancée Emma, who still had no idea what her future husband had been doing, my brother, Sarah's sister, and a few close friends. Everyone who mattered to us. Everyone who deserved to know the truth. I spent the week making preparations. Rebecca had the divorce papers ready. Marcus had compiled all the surveillance photos into a professional presentation, and I'd put together my own slideshow of evidence, bank statements, hotel receipts, security camera footage, and phone records. Saturday arrived. Sarah spent the day cooking and decorating, excited about the party. Mike came over early to help set up, playing the role of supportive best friend one last time. This is really nice of you, Emma said when she arrived with Mike. Celebrating your recovery with all the people who love you. Exactly, I said. All the people who love me. By 7 p.m., everyone was gathered in our living room. Sarah had outdone herself with the decorations and food. People were laughing, sharing stories about my recovery, talking about how lucky I was to have such devoted people in my life. I'd like to make a toast, I announced, standing up with the help of my crutches. The room fell quiet. Sarah smiled proudly from across the room. Mike raised his beer bottle. First, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. The past few weeks have been enlightening. I've learned a lot about the people in my life, about trust, about loyalty, about who really cares about me. Nods and murmurs of agreement around the room. But before we toast, I have something I need to share with all of you. Something I discovered while I was in the hospital. Sarah's smile flickered. Mike went pale. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to our TV. I hope you don't mind, but I put together a little presentation about what I learned while I was recovering. The first slide came up, the truth about trust. You see, while I was lying in that hospital bed, broken and helpless, I received a text message that changed my life forever. I clicked to the next slide, Sarah's text message to Mike, blown up on our 65-inch TV for everyone to read. The room went dead silent. Sarah's mother gasped. Emma dropped her wine glass. My father stood up, his face turning red. This message was meant for Mike, I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. My best friend. The man I trusted to look after my wife while I was injured. Mike bolted for the door, but my brother blocked his path. Oh, we're not done yet, I said, clicking to the next slide. Security camera footage of Mike and Sarah kissing on our front porch. This was taken while I was working overtime to pay for our life together. Sarah was crying now, but I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. And this, I clicked again, showing hotel receipts and restaurant charges, is how they used our joint credit card to fund their affair. Emma was staring at Mike in horror. You're engaged to me, she whispered. We're supposed to get married in 6 months. Emma, I can explain. Mike started. No, I interrupted, clicking to the final slide. Let me explain, because Mike's betrayal goes beyond just sleeping with my wife. The screen filled with financial documents, invoices, and bank records. Mike has been embezzling from our shared business clients for over a year. He's stolen more than $30,000 using my reputation to commit fraud. Mike's face went white. Tom, you don't understand. I understand perfectly, I said, pulling out my phone. Which is why I called the police 20 minutes ago. They should be here any moment. As if on cue, we heard sirens outside. The room erupted in chaos. Sarah's parents were yelling at her. Emma was screaming at Mike. My parents were demanding explanations. But I just stood there, calm and satisfied, watching my perfect revenge unfold exactly as I'd planned. They'd destroyed my trust, my marriage, and my friendship. But now I was destroying their lives. The immediate aftermath was beautiful chaos. Mike was arrested right there in my living room, handcuffed in front of everyone who mattered to us. The fraud charges were serious. Felony embezzlement, wire fraud, theft by deception. He was looking at 5 to 10 years in prison. "Tom, please," he begged as the officers led him away. "We've been friends for 15 years. You can't do this to me." "You did this to yourself," I replied. "I just made sure you faced the consequences." Emma threw her engagement ring at him as he passed. It bounced off his chest and clattered across the floor. Sarah was hysterical, alternating between trying to apologize to me and screaming that I'd set them up. Her parents looked like they'd aged 10 years in 10 minutes. "How could you do this to Tom?" her mother demanded. "After everything he's given you." "You don't understand," Sarah sobbed. "Mike and I, we fell in love. It just happened." "It happened for 4 months," I corrected, showing more evidence on my laptop. 4 months of planned betrayal while I was working to build our future. Sarah's father couldn't even look at her. "Pack your things," he told her quietly. "You're coming home with us tonight." "Dad, please." "Tonight, Sarah. We'll figure out the rest later." The guests left quickly after that, each offering me words of support and shooting disgusted looks at Sarah. My parents stayed to help clean up, my mother fussing over me like I was still in the hospital. "I'm so proud of how you handled this," she said. "It must have been incredibly difficult to plan all this while keeping it to yourself." It had been difficult, but it had also been incredibly satisfying. They'd thought they were so clever, so careful, but their arrogance had been their downfall. Rebecca, my divorce attorney, arrived Monday morning with the finalized papers. Since we had documented proof of adultery, plus evidence that Sarah had used marital assets to fund her affair, the settlement was heavily in my favor. I got the house, most of our savings, and Sarah was responsible for half of the debt we'd incurred during her affair, including the hotel rooms and restaurant bills she'd charged to our joint accounts. "She'll probably have to declare bankruptcy," Rebecca told me. "The financial penalties for adultery in a marriage this length, combined with the documented misuse of marital assets, are severe." "Good," I said. I felt no sympathy whatsoever. Mike's situation was even worse. The DA was pursuing felony charges, and with the evidence I'd provided, conviction was almost certain. His IT consulting business collapsed overnight when word spread about the embezzlement. His professional reputation was destroyed. Emma not only broke their engagement but also posted about his infidelity and criminal behavior on social media. His family and friends turned their backs on him. He lost his apartment when he couldn't make bail and had to move back in with his parents at age 35. Within a week, Sarah had moved back in with her parents and taken a leave of absence from teaching. The school district was conducting their own investigation into her conduct, and she'd likely lose her job permanently. Their affair, which had seemed so passionate and exciting, crumbled under the weight of reality. When Mike was facing prison time and Sarah was facing financial ruin, and their true love evaporated pretty quickly. I heard through mutual friends that they'd tried to blame me for entrapping them, that I'd been a controlling husband who forced Sarah to seek affection elsewhere, that I was vindictive and cruel for pursuing criminal charges against Mike. But everyone who knew us saw through that nonsense. I'd been nothing but a devoted husband and loyal friend. They were the ones who'd chosen betrayal. They were the ones who'd chosen to destroy 15 years of friendship and 8 years of marriage. I'd just chosen to make sure they faced the consequences. 6 weeks after the dinner party, I was sitting in a coffee shop downtown when Mike approached my table. He looked terrible, thinner, unshaven, wearing clothes that had seen better days. "Tom, please, just give me 5 minutes." I gestured to the empty chair across from me. I was curious to hear what he had to say. "I know you hate me," he started, his voice shaking. "I know what we did was unforgivable. But did you have to destroy my entire life? The criminal charges, Tom? Really?" I sipped my coffee and studied his face. He looked broken, desperate. "Good. You destroyed your own life, Mike. I just made sure everyone knew about it." "But we were friends, were we?" I interrupted. "Because friends don't steal from each other, friends don't lie to each other, and friends definitely don't sleep with each other's wives." He was quiet for a moment, staring at his hands. "The affair was wrong, I know that. But the business stuff, that was different. That was just theft," I finished. "You stole from my clients, Mike. You used my name, my reputation to commit fraud. You made me an unwitting accomplice to your crimes. I was going to pay it all back. With what money? You were spending everything on hotels and fancy dinners with my wife. Mike's face crumpled. Sarah won't even talk to me anymore. The moment the criminal charges were filed, she cut off all contact, said she couldn't be associated with someone facing prison time. I almost laughed. So the great love affair lasted about 5 minutes once real consequences showed up? She said she never loved me, that it was just physical, that she was confused and lonely. Now I did laugh. And you believed her? Mike, she was using you just like you were using me. The difference is, you were too stupid to see it. He looked up at me with desperate eyes. If you drop the charges, I'll do anything. I'll pay back every penny. I'll leave town. I'll never contact Sarah again. Please, Tom. I can't go to prison. You should have thought about that before you decided to betray me. I stood up to leave, but Mike grabbed my arm. You got your revenge, okay? You exposed us. You ruined our reputations. You destroyed our relationship. Sarah's broke and unemployed. I'm facing prison time. Isn't that enough? I looked down at him, this pathetic shell of the man who used to be my best friend, and felt absolutely nothing. Mike, you want to know what the perfect revenge is? It's not that I exposed your affair. It's not even that I had you arrested for embezzlement. I leaned closer, lowering my voice. The perfect revenge is that I never had to lie about anything. Every piece of evidence I presented was true. Every charge against you is legitimate. Every consequence you're facing is something you earned through your own choices. I pulled my arm free from his grip. I didn't destroy your life, Mike. I just stopped protecting you from the life you were already living. He called after me as I walked away, but I didn't look back. I was done with Mike, done with Sarah, done with the whole sordid mess they'd created. The truth was, I'd already moved on. I had a new life to build, and it was going to be so much better than the one they'd destroyed. 6 months later, I was sitting on my back deck, watching the sunset over the garden Sarah used to tend. The house felt different now, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. Mike had been sentenced to 4 years in prison. The judge had been particularly harsh, noting that he'd not only stolen money, but had betrayed personal and professional trust to do it. His IT business was finished, his reputation destroyed permanently. Sarah's life had imploded just as thoroughly. She'd lost her teaching job after the school district's investigation, lost her apartment when she couldn't afford rent, and was living with her parents indefinitely. The divorce had left her with nothing but debt and a ruined reputation. They'd each tried to contact me several times over the months, but I'd blocked them everywhere. My lawyer handled any necessary communication. I was done with both of them forever. As for me, I was thriving. The construction company had promoted me again after the Mike situation was resolved. They were impressed by how I'd handled the discovery of his fraud, and several clients had specifically requested to work with me after hearing about my integrity in the situation. I'd sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a smaller place across town. It was modern, clean, and completely mine. No ghosts, no shared history, no reminders of betrayal. But the best part of my new life was sitting across from me right now, laughing at something on her phone. "What's so funny?" I asked. Jessica looked up from her phone, her green eyes sparkling with amusement. "My sister just sent me a picture of her cat wearing a Halloween costume in July." I'd met Jessica at physical therapy. She was a nurse who'd been recovering from a rock climbing accident, and we'd bonded over the absurdity of hospital coffee and the challenge of relearning how to walk properly. She was everything Sarah wasn't: honest, straightforward, genuinely funny. She knew my whole story, and instead of running away from the drama, she'd admired how I'd handled it. "You didn't just get mad," she'd said when I first told her everything. "You got even. Intelligently. That takes real strength." Jessica understood something that Sarah never had. That trust isn't just given, it's earned and maintained every single day. She also understood that actions have consequences, something both Sarah and Mike had learned the hard way. "I have to ask you something," Jessica said, setting down her phone and looking at me seriously. "Shoot. Do you ever regret it? The way you handled everything with them?" I thought about it for a moment, considering the question honestly. "No," I said finally. "I regret trusting them. I regret not seeing the signs earlier. I regret wasting 8 years of my life with someone who didn't value what we had, but I don't regret exposing the truth." even knowing it would destroy them? Jessica, they destroyed themselves. I just made sure they couldn't hide from the consequences anymore. She nodded, seeming satisfied with my answer. Good, because I was testing you. Testing me. I needed to know you weren't the vindictive type who goes around destroying people for fun, but what you did wasn't vindictive. It was justice. There's a difference. I reached across the table and took her hand. And what's the verdict? The verdict is that you're exactly the kind of man I want in my life. Someone who stands up for himself, protects what matters, and doesn't let people walk all over him. As the sun set behind us, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed. A year ago, I thought I was living the perfect life with people who loved me. It turned out I was living a lie with people who were using me. But sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened to you. Sarah and Mike had betrayed my trust, broken my heart, and shattered my life. But in destroying my old life, they'd freed me to build a better one. Now I had a woman who actually loved me, a career that respected me, and a future full of real possibilities instead of pretty lies. They thought they were so clever, carrying on their affair while I was helpless in that hospital bed. They thought they'd get away with it forever. Instead, they'd given me the greatest gift possible, the truth about who they really were, and the motivation to become who I was meant to be. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is getting better. What do you think? Was my revenge justified, or did I go too far? Have you ever had to deal with betrayal from people you trusted completely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories about trust, betrayal, and how you handled it when people you loved let you down.